Well, now to the latest on mental health. According to the CDC, Alzheimer's family caregivers are at greater risk for depression than caregivers of people with other conditions. Depression affects people in different ways, and the type and intensity of symptoms vary according to the person and can change over time. So general warning signs to watch for when caregiving, especially when these symptoms persist longer than a few weeks, include feeling nothing you do is enough, feeling empty or hopeless, and feeling tired all of the time. Now, joining me now to talk more about this topic is Zenithia Brown, the Executive Director of NAMI Mid-Carolina. Thank you so much for waking up early for us this morning.
Thank you for having me again.
Yes, absolutely. Now, one of the things I really want to talk about is the fact that there really isn't a prevalent conversation about caregiver mental health. Can you speak to the fact that there are really a lot of people who struggle with this who are caregivers?
Very much so. Many caregivers are actually full-time employees, so basically caregiving is their second job. But we don't really question it because we're caregivers for our families, and it's kind of an obligation, and we feel like, that's our only choice. And so, but at the same time, we also need to remember that we have to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
And so many caregivers report that they neglect their own health, because they're taking care of others. And so we have to make sure they understand that they need to seek help too.
Absolutely, and I want to talk about this as well. From the caregivers that I have spoken with, they say, I feel like a burden, or I feel guilty for even coming forward and saying this is weighing heavily on my mental health. Can you speak to the fact that that's not true? You're not a burden. You shouldn't feel guilty if you're struggling with your mental health.
Becoming a caregiver does not mean giving up your own life, giving up your own health, or neglecting yourself. Caregivers need to understand that it is okay to ask for help, and I understand that, when you're dealing with someone who has a mental health condition or Alzheimer's, that, people aren't really quick to come over and say, hey, can I help? But you need to pull on your circle, and you need to ask for help, and you need to be able to say, hey, listen, can you do something for me? And for those of us on the outside looking in, we need to be able to say, hey, listen, I'm going to the grocery store. Is there anything you need?
Wow.
I know that you've been in the house for a whole week. How about I come and basically relieve you so that you can go get your nails done, or so that you can go and just enjoy yourself or do some self-care for yourself. Because if you don't, we find that as a caregiver, you find yourself living with a mental health condition. As a caregiver, you're more prone to depression, anxiety, isolation, and so you definitely need to seek your help. So becoming a caregiver, we need to understand, does not mean just your life ends.
Thank you so much for speaking to that. And I also want to talk about the resources that are available for caregivers who may be struggling with their mental health.
Well, there's always NAMI.
Absolutely, yes.
Go to NAMIcanhelp.org. We actually have support groups of family members of people living with a mental health condition, and we encourage them to come so that they can get information about support and resources, but also so that they can talk to other people who are experiencing the exact same thing, who are frustrated, who are tired, but also are not ready to give up on their loved ones, which they should not. But it's a support system that lets people know they're not alone, that others, going through the same thing, and there are people on there that can share resources. So there's NAMI Can Help. There's also the South Carolina Commission on Aging, and they actually can help you find resources, maybe for respite care, people that can come in, and there's funding available too. So there are some resources out there, but also, like I said, you can go to NAMIcanhelp.org and look at our resource manual. If you're not in the Midlands, other areas in the state, we do have information about caregiver resources.
Absolutely, so good. There are resources available, and I loved also that you touched on the fact that we as a community can support our caregivers by doing something as simple as saying, hey, how can I help?
Exactly.
Now, before we wrap up, a very exciting weekend. Okay, NAMI Walks Mid-Carolina was held this weekend. I had the honor of serving as the MC. It was really incredible. We had such a good time. Can you talk about how the event went?
Oh, it was fun. We had a great time. Yeah. A lot of supporters came out. It was great to see the park full of people sharing the same experiences. But I do want to say that you can still give.
Let them know.
NAMIWalks.org. It's very important to support our fundraiser because it allows us to keep our services for free. So if you go to NAMIcanhelp.org, you can still give. We're collecting funds up until June 20th, or you can go to NAMI NAMIWalks.org/Mid-Carolina. Sorry, got
No,
a
that's
little
okay.
tongue-tied
That's
there.
a lot. That's
Yes,
a lot
it
to
is.
remember.
Yes.
But again, still a great opportunity to help and be involved, because the resources, the free resources that y'all are providing really are making such a huge impact on so many people's lives, not only here in the Midlands, but across the state of South Carolina. Z, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and experience and expertise when it comes to caregiver mental health and awareness.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Absolutely.